Welcome to Heart Failure Unfiltered. My name is Nick Hartshorne-Evans and I'm the founder and CEO of the Pumping Marvellous Foundation, the UK's heart failure charity. Today, we will be discussing When Heart Failure Came Home. This is the first episode of a series of 2 podcasts talking to the person who was diagnosed with heart failure and the impact of their heart failure diagnosis on their family. Receiving a diagnosis is only the beginning. The family unit shares what really happened for the first time. This podcast asks one question over and over again: beat the diagnosis. Why getting a fast diagnosis and timely treatment builds the foundations for people living with heart failure.
It's time for a marvellous myth buster, busting the myths around heart failure. Myth: if symptoms improve, heart failure is cured.
Truth: heart failure is usually a long-term condition. Treatments help control symptoms and improve heart function, but ongoing care and medication are important. So today we're at the Liverpool Podcast Studios, the home of podcasting in Liverpool, it seems, because this is our home for podcasting. We've got a bit of a special podcast here, really. We've got 2. This is the first of 2. And I've got some special guests, and I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm Nick's wife.
I'm Natasha. I'm the eldest of Nick's daughters.
I'm Anastasia, and I'm the youngest of Nick's daughters.
So you can see this is going to be a really special podcast because when heart failure came home, the day our family changed forever. I was 39 when my family on the cusp of losing me. The illness, the fear, the uncertainty, and the road to diagnosis, treatment, and living with it. The girls, I know you're not girls now, but were 7 and 5. So, Karen, wife, what's it like to watch your husband become seriously ill without knowing what is happening or whether he'll recover?
Well, it was very difficult because it sort of came along slowly. It was just before the Christmas, I think 2009, yeah. And it was that Christmas where it was really, really cold conditions. So minus 15, and it was frozen for weeks.
Couldn't move the car, could we?
No. And what happened was you started getting very breathless when you were outside, and we sort of thought it was a chest infection. And you were struggling to do stuff. And also, which is quite relevant, we just got a new puppy. A German Shepherd puppy called Riggs at the beginning of December. So you were struggling to take him out for walks. And so I was doing that. And I'm thinking, because you were so enthusiastic about getting him, but that was quite difficult. So because of the problems we had with our house, the reason why I started noticing that things weren't going well was because, for various reasons, we have a gas meter that gets frozen, or used to get frozen in the winter. So we'd have to get the gas board out, we'd have to turn the water off and all this sort of thing. And you couldn't do that. And I found that really unusual because it was the sort of thing that you would normally do. No, because you couldn't go outside, and where our water stopcock is sort of
a new word to Baltic.
Is up a slope, and you couldn't get up the slope. So of course it was a classic case of you need to go and see the doctor. But also because it was Christmas and New Year, difficult to get doctor's appointments, even back then. So I started noticing that, and then eventually went to the doctor, and I think, was that when the doctor said you had to give you some cough medicine?
That half a litre of cough linctus that's still in the cupboard unopened. Yeah.
And so we knew that wasn't right. And then it was very much a case of you started not being able to do things, and you couldn't go into work, and you were really, really struggling with your breathing. And it was sort of concerning because we really didn't know what it was. And you had been... Because I think there was also the occasion one Saturday night when you'd gone to A&E because you'd felt so unwell, and they basically told you to see the doctor the next week. And that was it was difficult.
One of them at A&E said that I had he called it pregnant woman syndrome, because I had a distended, but the fluid was on my
Is that a
abdomen.
real thing?
Yeah, of course it is.
So anyway, it was difficult. But where I started noticing you
I can
becoming...
see this being a challenging podcast, by the way.
Where we're really noticing it was because you got to the stage where you were struggling to leave the bedroom, which was really odd. And it turns out, which I sort of didn't really notice, because obviously I was working, had the children, all that sort of thing. You were spending a lot of time in the bathroom because that was where you could get your breath.
Well, that was because our ensuite bathroom had been the underfloor heating being put in, so it was warm air.
Yes. So, and then where I really got concerned was when you started hallucinating and telling me about the little green men that were coming into the bedroom at night.
And that's true, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
I was
Natasha.
sort of,
Yeah.
it was very much that.
I think that was probably to do with the amount of fluid that was building up on me.
But I think it was also so I eventually said, right, on a Monday, we're going to the doctors and I will take you and I will come in with you, which was really unusual for you, but you just accepted it. I don't even think you got out of pajamas. I think you actually went in your slippers and pajamas, which...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did.
Which was... And the doctor
Really?
Yeah.
was a bit unnerved and said, we'll do blood tests and we'll get the results. And I said, okay, right. And then he said, I'll call you Tuesday evening, because they'd got these sort of tablets for kidney infection and all this sort of stuff. And I said, the Tuesday evening, you were getting a call at 6:00. And I said, right, I'm speaking to the doctor and you're going to be admitted to hospital because we're not going to A&E, because unless your leg's dropping off, they'll take no notice. And I said, you're admitting him. And you went into MMU, whatever the sort of assessment unit was. And
MAU, Management Assessment Unit.
yeah, and I had to get you to the drop-off
But
point.
when was that? When did that happen? When you thought this could be serious? What was that point? Because I'm just going to rewind a little bit before you started, which is I had offices in Manchester, and so there was if anybody remembers Manchester, as if Manchester's like key topic at the moment, isn't it? But there was a car park by the Manchester Evening News Arena, which is now what's it called now?
The AO.
AO Arena.
Yeah.
And it's about a half-mile walk, but it's a gentle slope up to the city centre. And I just felt I was getting a little bit more fatigued and a little bit more breathless walking up when I shouldn't have been. And then basically, I know at Christmas, my mother said, I can't believe, I didn't eat my Christmas dinner. I didn't eat anything, did I? I just sat there and just watched everybody else, which unusual for me.
Yeah.
So it was starting to poke its head.
And I think, it was a combination of, you sort of weren't that interested in, not interested, but the children, you would normally spend a lot more time with them. And it was a question of, you couldn't really be bothered, which because...
Also, I spent so much time in the bedroom, in bed, and, everybody worked around me, and that was really unusual.
Yes, and, it was difficult, but eventually I got you in, and the challenge when I got into the assessment unit was, because your kidneys and liver was failing, they kept trying to do an ECG, but it was all over the place, so they reckoned the machine was broken.
It was 180.
And then they kept saying things like,
180 ridden.
Have you been abroad? Have you, do you take drugs? Because they're going down the hepatitis route, which just those worked out. And we're going, no. And I suppose one of the things was they just didn't look for anything, but they were looking at the pinpoint of the liver kidney failure, which obviously was a result we later understood because of the heart.
But did you ever have were you frightened that I might die? Without communicating that to me?
I suppose it came a bit later because I was concerned, but it was sort of a case of, I suppose it was stages. I'd got you into hospital and I sort of felt that now you were properly admitted to hospital, they would do something, as opposed to when I was, had you at home and you were all over the place, and also the GP was was frankly useless. So at least it was that sort of stage, we'll get you into hospital. Obviously, they then kept you in and put you on the kidney ward, dialysis ward,
Yeah.
with lots of very old men. And you were the youngest probably by about 30, 40 years. And I think the thing that concerned me was they didn't seem to know what the problem was. And certainly they were talking about liver issues, and that really sort of worried me. And I suppose it got to the stage where, we'd intended, because you hadn't seen the children for ages, I was going to take you in on the Sunday, so you'd been in since the Tuesday. And I was walking the dog around the canal.
Who I thought had caused me the problems. I thought it was allergic to the German Shepherds.
Yeah, so we were going to have to get rid of
Poor Riggs.
Poor Riggs.
And
That was genuine.
and the nurse contacted me on the canal and said, he's got an oxygen mask on. He doesn't want the children to see him like that. So I frantically got, the
So at
Nick's
that point,
parents.
did you think
Well,
something
it
was serious?
seriously, because I'm thinking, what is going on? And of course, strangely, with liver,
From a layperson's perspective.
from a layperson's perspective at that time, I was really quite, if you've got a liver problem,
Maybe it's fixable.
no, I
Maybe
actually
it's
thought Liverpool
unfixable.
wasn't.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I was much more concerned about that.
Okay.
And then, of course, you got diagnosed, and it was really badly handled by the hospital. But luckily, because,
And why was it badly handled?
well, on the Monday, you'd obviously gone for an echo, I presume.
No, I hadn't gone for an echo. There were no echo slots. Echocardiography wasn't available. I had to go, if you remember, to the delivery suite where the guy who dealt with the deliveries, the pregnant ladies, and the ultrascans.
Again.
Yeah, and the ultrasounds basically had me sat up in the seat that he did the ultrasounds on for pregnant women, checking the pregnancy through the periods of time, with a load of student nurses around, and basically said, you've got fluid on your lungs. I can see that. I think you need to go to cardiology. And then he said, I think we've got and this is, nobody else was there. And I've got a friend who works in cardiology, and but it was a registrar, and that's when I was admitted to.
And so we came in with your mum and dad on the Monday evening, because I was going in. They were going to see you at lunch during the afternoon, and I was seeing you in the evening, because that's how it worked out with the children. Because I think the first day I tried to do afternoon and evening, and we're not that close to the hospital, and it was just and I knew I wasn't going to see the children, so we decided to do it that way. But we both, I don't remember why, we were all there, and you'd moved to coronary care unit, which of course is a lot more alarming, because you've got people
Very ill.
very ill in side rooms and all that sort of thing, but you were on the ward. Now, luckily, you had explained that there was something wrong with your heart, because the registrar, the doctor, basically came, and luckily it was only me and you sat
I
there,
think he was a locum.
and he just went, you got heart failure, which was sort of a case of, but because it's sort of been a bit explained to me, I was sort of slightly less concerned. And I had a very, very strange reaction.
But you hadn't had something explained to you. You'd only said, I think it's a heart condition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had a very, very strange reaction, because I went, if it's something to do with his heart, that's fixable. They do heart transplants these days. Now, obviously, now I understand how complex that is. But it was moved from the liver. So I was actually slightly oddly more relaxed about it being heart than liver.
But I also think if you get a diagnosis, you have some kind of certainty around it, rather than it just being, who knows what's going on. We don't know what you've got or things like that. So that's probably helped.
But how much did you know at this time? Because I'd been
Not much. I
a
don't
week,
think.
Because you
10
hadn't
days.
been in at all.
No, I remember going into a ward when you were on a ward, and it was nighttime. I think it was the cardiology ward, and there was a lot of very sick people, and you didn't seem as sick as them, but then that's probably because you didn't want us to know that you were that sick. And yeah, I mean, we came a couple of times. A couple of times when you were in hospital, like we went in the weekends as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
What did you tell Natasha and Anastasia about what was going on? Because I'd been gone 7 days, 10 days.
Yes, I suppose some of it was because they were sort of used to us each working away. So it wasn't, so they were sometimes used to one of us not being about. So I think that sort of probably helped a bit more. I don't know.
Yeah.
The resilience that you didn't expect to see us every day.
single
So
day
during
all
this,
the time.
I mean, I hadn't even been diagnosed with heart failure, apart from when the guy said you got heart failure. And looking back on it, I don't know how he determined that, because I had an echo and I hadn't had any tests or anything that indicated that, but he just said I had heart failure. So what was the hardest thing you had to do during that period before you heard those words, heart failure?
I think the hardest thing was, because of the type of people we are, I didn't know. I couldn't plan. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know what to. The children, you know, we were very lucky that we got the puppy,
Yeah.
because that gave, you know, very much a focus. You know, a big goofy German Shepherd who was mad as a box of frogs.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of helped. And obviously they were going to school and things like that. And I'd explained they were quite a small primary school, and I'd explained to the teachers, and the teachers and they had friends, and that the parents knew. So it was sort of, because they were always asking about Nick when I dropped them off at school in the morning, things like that. So I think that helped sort of distract the family. Yeah, when I was trying to balance work, so I'd work in the morning, partially during the day, see sort out the children from school, and then come back in the evening and do a bit more work, and I'd have the dog lying at my feet. So he became my sort of best friend then, because I couldn't go and do anything.
That's because you fed him.
Yeah, and that's when I learned that he'd steal anything he could get his paws on.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel that healthcare professionals weren't seeing what you were seeing at home prior to going into the hospital?
Well, the thing, yes, very much.
These days, I would say I was exhibiting classic signs of
yes,
decompensated heart
and
failure. Obviously, and there was a blood test, the NT-proBNP.
Even in
the
those
beat
days.
symptoms, even in those days, 2010. But it was never mentioned, and it never clicked, did it?
Did you ever get the test?
No. Didn't need it, because it was an echocardiogram was the.
Right, okay.
But I didn't get an echocardiogram until I got to the cardiology ward.
True.
Yes, and obviously the GP, they were the old school GP, and I think looking back, if I hadn't forced them to admit you to hospital, you could have had serious.
I don't think I would have been alive.
No, and you would have had.
Because I couldn't, when I was sat up, I couldn't breathe.
And you had serious, your organs were failing.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. But of course, at the time, and obviously when you were admitted, I didn't realise how bad, I knew nothing about EF, I knew nothing. And part of the problem was, so in the little waiting room in CCU, where they asked us to wait just because they were faffing about with you in the bed and all that sort of thing, there was booklets which you I picked up the first one. It had old people on the front, and basically I read the first paragraph, and you were going to die. So I thought, right, we're not reading that, because that doesn't relate.
But you were having these traumatic experiences in the hospital. Just Anastasia and Natasha, did Mummy come back and brief you? I'm not trying to blame you here, but it's just how people manage. Did she try and brief you on what? Can you remember? Because you're only a tiny tot, weren't you?
I mean, I have genuinely no memory. I can briefly remember a period of time where you weren't about as much, but that was completely it. I obviously knew that you were ill, but I remember visiting you in hospital, but that is genuinely it. I was only 5, so I was actually only 4 at the time. 4, 5? I was 4/5. So yeah, I don't really remember. It's just a period of time
So
where
it sounds
you went
as though
about.
Mummy managed it quite well in terms of keeping it away from you.
Yeah, 100%. I think.
But the stress on her must have been really...
Oh no, I fully get that. I think that there's a lot that you both were very good at managing to hide or at least conceal the truth from us to an extent. I think it did help that we were young and we weren't conscious enough to question or like look outside the box. Whereas if it happened 2015 when I was about...
Can I ask you a
30,
question
go
then?
on.
If you had access to the internet then, like you do now, would have it impacted you more, do you think? Do you think you'd have been searching?
Yeah, I'm a naturally inquisitive person. I always want to know everything out about any medical condition. Whenever I hear about it, it's just something that I'm like. But
You're
I think
scarily inquisitive, aren't you?
but I'd have researched it to death. I'd have probably I'd have been on academic articles. I'd have been on everything for it.
You don't even need to do that, because I think what majority of people do is when they've got any sort of symptom, even if they've stubbed their toe, they'll search up on Google and they're either pregnant, going to die in the next 24 hours, or, everyone does that. And I think even just one Google search, it probably would have made us quite scared. We went to mummy. And
I think you're very right.
And I didn't look up anything, and I don't know.
Yeah, but it was 2010. It's not the same as it is
now.
now.
Age.
That's not that.
I know. I mean,
Middle
no,
ages.
but what I'm saying is we've got AI now. We can just, if it had been now,
you could have said,
I'd have typed it into ChatGPT.
What's
I
up
will
with me, Dad?
say that, as much as stuff on the internet can be really scary and really depressing, I also do look at success rates and things and treatment options. That I'm not all doom and gloom. I would
think
look
it would have
at
been after in 2010 if you'd have researched it.
Yeah, obviously, but that's because there wasn't the wealth of information out there. There wasn't heart failure. There wasn't Pumping Marvellous.
So when you heard the words heart failure, when it sank in a little bit, when you were driving home by yourself, by the way, without my mum and dad, because mum and dad were there as well, what was going through your head? And did you think that knowing what it is, we can now deal with it? Or was it just like, this is a nightmare?
Well, I thought...
Or maybe poor Nick.
Well, it was a stage of, it was, as I said, it was more at least you're in a place where I think they can do it. And obviously that first night, we couldn't speak to anybody who knew anything, because as I said, the locum who said heart failure knew nothing. And obviously there was no consultants or anybody else around. So it was sort of a case of slight relief that you were on what appeared to be a professional ward, because the previous ward you'd been on, the dialysis or the kidney ward, was full of very, very old men who were asleep, possibly. And the only thing I remember about that, the nurses were pleasant enough, but the only thing I remember about that ward is they're all supposed to have, kidney and potentially be on dialysis and, all that sort of thing, that they brought along the tea trolley and asked how many sugars people wanted and offered them biscuits, which we did laugh about, because that was probably the thing that amused us.
Yeah. But that was when I was at my worst.
Yes,
I was really ill. I was fluid overloaded. I was toxic.
Because you were on oxygen mask, and literally the bathroom was, a few yards away,
Everest,
and I had to push you in a wheelchair.
To go to the bathroom.
So I was relieved you were on a ward and they sort of understood it. And as I said, I was a little bit more relieved because I thought heart, they could do lots of things with that. And again, that's just because of publicity at that time.
But did you not think, did you have enough time to be like overly ruminating in those thoughts though, because you had so much to do and so much to think about and so many different things to keep a hold of and keep the house afloat, the children afloat, everything. Did you have the time to really?
I think possibly not. I was very lucky that I could work from home, and I had a hugely supportive team around me who, covered for me.
That was massive, wasn't it? Because, it's huge.
But I enjoy the work helped because it meant I had other people to talk about. I could think about the big program that I was and that made a huge difference to me personally. Because if I'd been, you're quite right, Natasha, if I'd been sat around the house doing nothing during the day, goodness knows what I would thought about it.
Spiral.
And I had people, because I knew a lot of the people quite well, and even from work.
Did you know anybody with heart failure? Did anybody know what heart failure was?
No.
That's frightening as well, isn't it?
And the thing was that people, did I actually say you had heart failure? I remember this was after you were, I said to somebody, oh, I'm not available for the next couple of hours because Nick's heart failure nurse came in. And they went, heart failure? And that was a sort of reaction. But then, of course, I probably had not explained it very well because I didn't really understand it, And again, the material at that time, which effectively led to why Pumping Marvellous exists. As I said, you're either old and going to die. Now, the Trust had a sort of better booklet, and we did laugh about it because it was a better booklet and a bit more information. But they basically said two very funny things. First of all, for somebody who was 39, when you're feeling a bit better, you might be able to play with your grandchildren. And then eventually you might be able to go to a tea dance.
Which is not.
And this is.
I've actually attended a tea dance.
But this was to people who not that long ago.
Pre or post diagnosis?
Post diagnosis.
Yeah,
Wow.
see.
But this was
no
to,
pre-diagnosis.
but this was to people who not that long ago had been to see the Prodigy.
Yeah.
So this is why we, and we have joked about this for years about.
That was the old Manchester GMEX.
Yeah,
I remember that,
but we'd been to other things, but it wasn't. We weren't out raving every weekend because we had children. But it was just sort of, this is just not relevant at all. And I think part of the problem is when you start reading information that doesn't appear relevant to you, you start not bothering with the other information.
Yeah.
I agree. And so, right. What did the words heart failure mean to you, Anastasia, when you first heard them as a child?
See, I can't really answer that properly because it's just the lack of memory. I think my whole life I've known heart failure, so it doesn't affect me, those words specifically. But I do think, from explaining it to other people or what I would imagine my first reaction to hearing heart failure would be is it doesn't have a good sound because it's just failure at the end, and it sounds like a heart's already failed. It's not it's a scary word. I think it's one of the scarier words for a diagnosis,
medical diagnosis.
Yeah. I mean, liver failure, not great either. Just failure in general, it doesn't sound very positive. But it's just something I've always had in my life.
Why have we attached failure to the end of heart? And I always say this, and please don't shoot me for this. But why don't we call dementia brain failure? I just want listeners to hold on that, because I think that's a really important point, because heart failure to anybody, because people don't know what it is very sudden. People think they're just going to drop down and die.
Yeah.
Actually, that's cardiac arrest.
But I have a counter argument that.
Well, there's a surprise.
No, but the thing is, for instance, the French, if you translate it, it's heart inefficiency.
Yeah, and in Spanish.
That doesn't sound very serious. It's just not doing quite as well as everybody else. Whereas failure does make people think that you've got something that isn't trivial, and therefore appreciate the fact that you have, you will take, if you were at a stage where you were going, and explaining it to your work. If you've got a heart inefficiency, people go, yeah, well, whatever. As opposed to
A heart condition.
Whereas heart failure does. So there's pros and cons of it. And
but the heart failure before heart failure wasn't it dropsy?
Something like that.
I mean, that just sounds sounds like a rabbit name.
Yeah, it
like
does.
Dropsy, flopsy,
like dropsy, flopsy, and
cottontail.
Dropsy.
yeah, exactly.
And dropsy, what on earth does that mean?
I mean,
Well, that's why it changed to heart failure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But this is one of the biggest things. Sorry, Anastasia. Go on.
Well, I think when you mention like that it actually sounds like someone's gonna, drop down and die, like they've got heart failure, and then you said, oh well, that's actually cardiac arrest. Throughout my life, there's a lot of people that actually don't know the difference between, a heart attack, cardiac arrest, all the different types. They have no idea about the mechanism behind it. So I think that's another issue. I mean, heart failure sounds really sudden, but if people understand it more, then it doesn't sound as...
Well, heart failure is a pump problem.
Yeah.
Cardiac arrest is an electrical problem, and you need a plumber for a heart attack because it's to do with your arteries and your heart and the clogging of the arteries.
Yeah.
So, did you guys talk to friends or teachers about what was happening? You remember any of that? I know this is a way back.
Not in a sense of my dad's got heart failure, I'm really scared. It was more like we made a big card with my teacher at the time,
Mrs.
Rustero. Yeah, still got her on Facebook. Yeah, exactly. But no, she was
when
the
she
best.
Sees this, she'll
one of the best
teachers.
One of the best teachers that we had, 100%. And we made a big card that I'm pretty sure you've still got somewhere.
I hope so. I'll be looking for it.
Basically
afterwards.
for you in hospital, about we want you to get well soon and all that kind of stuff. I think people knew that you were in hospital, but again, you're not going to tell a bunch of 5 to 7 year olds, oh yeah, Natasha Anastasia's dad's going to drop dead, or somebody who's really ill in hospital. He's like very, very, you're not going to say that to children. You're only going to tell them if it's happened. You don't tell children, oh, this is potentially might happen, or it's really bad. You only tell them if you have to.
Does the adult version of the story feel different from the childhood memory for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the childhood memory for me is really quite simple because I was literally only 5.
But did you pick up from the emotions of the family maybe that there was something? I mean, children are very good at picking emotions up, may not understand it, probably went well over your head.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said before, it was just the period of time where you weren't there, and it was... I probably would have, I feel like 5-year-olds are kind of in their own little world, little imagination, just running about, doing whatever. But I think it was just a period of time where you just weren't there. And possibly I may have thought mum seemed a little bit more stressed or, just a little bit off. But I didn't know, my brain didn't work like that. I think Natasha's...
I think... we aren't, and I think we would agree, we're not a very, very emotional family.
No.
We're not going to sit there and all cry together unless, something bad's really happened. But I remember we were at the kitchen table and we said, or I said, one of us said to you, Mum, oh, where's Daddy gone? And you were like, he's in hospital. And it was kind of, we knew he was ill. Hospital was where people went to go and get better. So he was going to get better. It wasn't, we didn't sit and think about it. Like we just knew that we were going into hospital. And me and Anastasia, we still know to this day that the reason why we love going to hospital was because we got to go to the WH Smith and pick some sweets out of the sweet bags.
Do you know what? I can't remember you coming into hospital.
I do.
No.
I remember and the hobnobs that you had.
I think I remember the hobnobs.
Yeah. So,
well, I mean, it's...
Yeah,
I think it's nice that we've got the memory of the WH Smith rather than the...
depressing
times, I think that's a little bit better.
I think it'd have been a lot different if we didn't have each other.
Yeah.
You are quite close as sisters, aren't you?
Well,
Yeah, we are.
We were very, very close then, I think.
100%. I mean,
You used to
On
dress
the
as
surface of it, I don't think it would. But,
You used to dress up often in the same clothes. It was a bit creepy, actually.
but
That was your choice, not mine.
anyway, yeah. No, we, as sisters do, we had our own like kind of language. We knew what each other meant.
so do you think, so that obviously was different messaging. It was different. Impact was different.
I think it was, I knew that stuff was going on, and maybe I might have, knowing how I am and knowing how our relationship and dynamic is, I'd have probably been like, shut up, don't say anything, or like, don't mention it.
Would you do that now?
Yeah,
Well,
no, we
I
do
mean,
that
I
now.
was.
Would you be protective of younger people now?
What do you mean?
Well, would you do a mummy?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't go, oh, that's your dad, Nick. Yeah, no, he's got heart failure. You go, unfortunately, your daddy's really, his heart isn't working as it should. We're going to try and get him better, blah, blah, blah. You want to soften the blow to children. I think that's what we had.
I think there is a balance between that. Now, one of the things that was, I found very helpful was your mum and dad took you guys away for the weekend, for the weekend, which you were used to, and therefore I didn't have to, and what with school and things like that, you went off and did some fun things.
Yeah.
And you were used to that. So I think it's sort of having that sort of family around made the opportunity. And as I said, I think having coincidentally getting the dog made a difference because there was.
I mean, I was upset that we were going to have to get rid of the dog. I'm not going to lie.
So
that was going to be the most difficult thing because I'm going.
It was 800 quid, wasn't it? Something like that.
Poor guy.
But I'm going. Here's my partner in crime now.
And it was the pet. He wasn't a pet, was he?
No.
He was a member of the
was
family.
Riggs.
Neither was the other.
Riggs. We were talking about as an adult dog, 50 kilo, black and tan German Shepherd called
Absolute
Riggs.
unit,
It was
basically.
what was the film? Lethal Weapon.
Lethal
Yeah.
Weapon. Sergeant Riggs.
Luckily, we didn't call the next female German Shepherd Murdoch.
Yeah.
But so have you got some questions for me? Because I feel as I've just been throwing them out to you guys. I mean, what's the?
Yeah.
I guess the question is, how are you feel? You obviously feeling really unwell. Did you feel that you could control what was happening to you, and that you were getting, how you were going to get that treatment to make you better?
So pre-hospital, I thought probably, I don't know, halfway through that this was becoming out of control, but I didn't know how to fix it. And knowing me, and knowing you, and knowing our family, I can't believe we didn't push harder. And that's nothing but that, but it felt like a flu, like a really, really bad flu. I mean, I did some stupid stuff. Like, it wasn't stupid, actually. It was, I ordered a Domino. I couldn't eat anything. That was because of the fluid retention. So this was when I was in bed. And if you remember, I ordered a Domino's pizza and I ordered double hit on the bird's eye chilies because I wanted to try and get my digestive system moving. One slice later, I forgot, I gave up on that basically, and we wasted the money on the pizza, but it was worth trying to explore why the hell I couldn't eat anything. And the other thing was, and this all makes sense now, because one of the techniques for breathlessness in palliative care, where you can't breathe, is a fan. But I used a hairdryer, and the hairdryer also gave me heat. So I used to hold the hairdryer here and used to breathe into the hairdryer because it was so warm. Because we were struggling to heat our bedroom, just because it's a big bedroom and it was minus 15 outside, and that's why I slept on the floor in the bathroom, because it was heated floor. So prior to and when I was in hospital, I mean, I was really hallucinating. I mean, I've got some weird hallucinations. So I don't want to talk about them on here, but they're really weird. But before I went was, the little green aliens, and Natasha can tell you that that's true.
Yeah,
I
it
was,
is.
and
fully true.
I must have been so fluid overloaded, got all this poisonous fluid that was just circulating around.
Yeah, I mean,
And I didn't know
thing
what was
that I
going
do
on.
remember when we went to go and see him is the bruising, the massive bruises. And do you remember that?
I actually remember that.
Like, because they were
veins.
getting all the veins and they'd gone in your feet. They,
In my
it
fingers
was,
and me.
oh, it was horrible. But
Yeah.
that was a big thing that I do remember because we know that, as children, bruises hurt.
But
And seeing that many.
I mean, I actually had a different opinion because it was just me not understanding whatsoever. I remember coming back and I actually looked at you. This was when you were back home, but I looked at your bruises and I thought, oh, that's quite cool, actually. It's got a lot of different colours on there. So,
Yeah, it was. It was blue, black, and yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. What was it like seeing your daughters beside a hospital bed?
Well, I can't really remember you coming in, apart from what you've reminded me of, that you were actually really pleased that you could shop at WH Smith's and buy some sweets, which is comforting. But I was very much under the opinion, what I wanted, and it was very much what I wanted, was I didn't want you guys to see me ill, really ill. And I was really ill. If there anybody who knows anything about heart failure, my EF was 15 to 20%, and I was really ill, and I was swollen, and I didn't want you to see me like that because I didn't want. It wasn't that I was thinking this is the lasting picture of who they thought their dad was, because I didn't. In a weird way, I never thought I was going to die. I didn't really think about that, but
Did you
I knew.
not?
But knowing now, I was in a serious way.
Did you not feel frightened? I mean, that you weren't,
I felt frightened when
like
I
that
became
we were gonna
exceptionally
be-
breathless.
like you weren't going to see us grow
When-
up and things?
Well, I mean,
It's a tough question, but
I would say I tried to be as protective as possible, but actually it was a weird feeling that as soon as the consultant cardiologist came to see me on the first morning in the coronary care unit, and I felt he gave me hope. Dr. Best, his name was. He looked like something out of ER, emergency room in Grey's Anatomy type thing. He had this real crazy hairdo, and he wore a Ralph Lauren green shirt. He's probably watched this and goes, oh, I haven't got one of those. And some chinos, and he looked like, and he just went bang, 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 bang. And I think that gave me confidence, but I didn't know I didn't really understand the seriousness of it.
yeah.
And therefore, but I just didn't want you to see me how I was. And I'm glad you didn't. You saw me when I'd had multiple, blood's been taken out my arm and whatnot.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel frightened about my diagnosis. Is this normal?
Yes, many people feel worried, uncertain, or overwhelmed after a heart failure diagnosis. Talking with others, learning about your condition, and finding support can make a huge difference.
Did you? I know that you had a lot of hallucinations, and possibly weren't the most conscious at that time when you were really ill. But was there anything that you did to try and keep your mind off of any negative thoughts?
No, the hallucinations were at night. There was the green alien one. That was before I went into hospital. And then there was one where I thought I was in a burns unit, and the guy had been
Oh God! Oh, I remember that.
burnt. And,
Yeah, because Jonathan, your brother and I were there, and it was the Sunday because he'd come across, and he told us this tale completely seriously, that there'd been in the middle of the night they'd wheeled this man that was completely covered in bandages across because he'd been burnt from head to foot.
And he was being taken from London to Scotland, and Blackburn was in the middle.
And he was completely,
technically, that is kind of true.
In the ambulance.
Geographically.
And he was in the bed next to me on the left.
and he was completely convincing. And Jonathan and I are going,
That's frightening.
that it was
That's
sort of
really creepy, actually.
Yes, it was just one of those things. I'd forgotten about that, but yes, it was sort of very, very
the
bizarre.
hallucinations were not part of this world really, and they didn't appear other than at night.
But it wasn't so much that it was hallucinations, but you were so convinced that you would not be told that.
Yeah,
It's like the little green men. I gave up arguing with you because you were convinced that they existed, which was really bizarre.
Is there anything that you kind of understand now about your experience in particular that you couldn't see at the time? Like anything you were told that obviously you've got a wealth of knowledge about heart failure now. I mean, that's a given, but is there anything different with that?
Different with?
Like why certain things might have happened or why certain treatments might have been better and things like that.
I think what surprises me still, but it doesn't surprise me now because of the stories of the many patients that we interact with on a regular basis. Actually, my story it may be quite jerky and acute and like serious over a short period of time, but a lot of people have really suffered with their symptoms prior to any form of diagnosis or any recognition of heart failure for up to a year, in fact more than a year some. And when I presented with some of the symptoms initially to the GP, in the second appointment, one of the GP had a trainee GP with him, and the woman pointed at my ankles and said peripheral edema. And peripheral edema is one of those beats, it's ankle swelling. And she pointed that out, and as far as I'm aware, he discontinued.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah, it wasn't a relevant thing.
Disparaged it.
So went down the kidney liver function, and the reason why the kidney liver were failing or not working properly at that time was because the heart wasn't working, and it's all interconnected. And I don't know if I've answered your question there, but
would you? This is a question to both of you, but would you change anything in terms of the way you handled telling us about the diagnosis, or when Dad first went into hospital? Would you, and during that hospital time, would you tell us any differently if we were mid to late teens instead of very young children?
I think we would have had to.
Yeah.
There's no way getting around it, I don't think.
And I think it may have been worse.
Yeah.
Because as you say, 5-year-olds, 7-year-olds are sort of...
Well, we've got the memory of the WH Smith, not to bring that again, but...
Yes. SpongeBob SquarePants and all that sort of stuff,
And there were lots of things that you could be distracted with and things like that. And you weren't sort of, because you had school, so you weren't sort of obvious. Whereas if you'd been, even if you'd just been a few years older, you would have been much more questioning, why is he away? Why is he in hospital? Why is he there so long? So I think, in that respect, and then it is difficult to sort of balance it out. And as you say, obviously not for long, people aren't going to be able to, under 16s aren't going to be able to search social media. But I think that's the balance of helping people through that and understanding.
So, Dad, would you have wanted to see us more if you were in hospital and,
As a teenager?
Yeah.
No.
Probably less, to be honest.
I think then would I have made the same decision? I would say, I maybe once when it was a managed come in, it wasn't like just turn up whenever you want. I don't think any person diagnosed with a serious condition like heart failure would want their children, however old they are, to see them in a state, certainly at 39.
Yeah.
And I think CCU, one of the things I was slightly stressed about was
Coronary care unit,
coronary care unit, was that, there wasn't going to be a medical emergency,
Yeah.
and the crash team and all that sort of thing. I was slightly nervous about that, but, I thought,
I think the only time that I was really concerned for my life was when somebody died behind me. And the first thing I knew about it was the chaplain was walking down the corridor, and I thought, what's he doing? And then it clicked. Somebody had died in a private room behind me. I was conscious enough to make the decision that I wanted to be in a ward because I enjoyed the conversation. I mean, the ward I was in, the general cardiology ward, was a crack. And, people were being sort of, a diabetic who had multiple strokes, multiple heart attacks, was being served 3 sugars in his tea, and he used to sneak down at night, have a fag, and buy a Snicker bar. And there was another guy who was going for a cabbage, coronary artery graft, and there was a guy next to me who used to read his Bible.
Fair enough.
But you meet so many different people, and it was really sad with the guy with the Bible because, and it's probably quite indicative of the times that we live in, that he used to go to Morrison's in a place called Nelson, and he used to sit in the foyer because he couldn't afford the heating in his flat. So I learned a lot in that hospital bed. I was there 3 weeks, and I think we've given a really good eye opener of where we've been as a family, and I appreciate you listening to it. We've got loads of other podcasts, but this one obviously is quite special to me, definitely, and certainly to the family. So we thank you for listening, and thank you to Anastasia, Natasha, and my wife Karen for some really insightful conversations. Thank you very much for listening to Heart Failure Unfiltered. We've had a fantastic session. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'd be really pleased if you could go to the Pumping Marvellous website. Just put Pumping Marvellous Foundation into Google and we're there. And it's www.pumpingmarvellous.org. If you need help at all, or if this has affected you in any way, we have a peer-to-peer support group, and all you've got to do is search Help for Hearts in Facebook. You apply to come in because we only look after people with heart failure and their carers, and come and join our tribe.